this morning, and actually the timeliness of this. It's unusual for mortgage bankers to be on time, so this is exciting. So as we get started this morning, we'll go through a few housekeeping items first, and then we'll get going with the program. Ladies' rooms are up and to the right as you walk into the foyer there, and the men, you have to go all the way down the other end of the building, and they'll be on the right. So chivalry is not dead. We're catering to the ladies here this morning. Second, and this is important, I would ask everyone to turn off your cell phones. You leave them on hum, they slide across the floor, and we hear them. No such thing as really quiet when they're on hum. And the other thing the building asks of us is no recording devices whatsoever are allowed in this building, in this auditorium. So please turn off all recording devices. And by the way, in line with that recording device issue, you certainly don't want that, I don't know, two-syllable social media giant to be listening to you. I think it begins with the sixth letter of the alphabet, but I'm not going to identify who they are. So it's really important that we turn everything off before we get started. And now we get on with the show. One Voice, who's sponsoring today's event, is a united group of real estate associations, which includes the Greater Baltimore Board of Realtors, the Maryland Mortgage Bankers and Brokers Association, and the Maryland Building Industry Association. I'd like to first thank the brainchild behind this event, Charlie Maykrantz from MMBBA. It was his idea to bring this event to fruition this morning. I'd also like to thank some of the fine folks from each of these organizations for the planning of this event. In particular, Al Ingram from GBBR, Rich Green, Ernie Grew, and Kevin McDonough from the MMBBA, and Josh Greenfeld from the MBIA. And of course, each of these individuals have true engineers behind the curtain who assisted them in making today possible, and I want to thank them as well. Jennifer Heil from GBBR, Lee Draminsky from the MMBBA, and Lori Graff from the MBIA. These associations represent individual and company members who support the Maryland housing environment. Our goal is to provide a united effort addressing current and future housing needs. And with that goal in mind, we're proud to host this Baltimore County Executive Candidate Forum here this morning. The executive election will be one of the most important and impactful races in the 2018 election. And when you arrived here today, you were given a document entitled Impact of Real Estate in the Greater Baltimore Area. I'd like to read it. I'm not going to read it, but I do want to highlight a few numbers from that report. Local real estate taxes generated approximately $1,055,566,500 from revenue in fiscal year 2017. Yield from recordation taxes was $72,134,000, and the yield from transfer taxes in fiscal year 2017 was $101,916,321. These yields, along with other related real estate activity, represents 58% of the total revenue for Baltimore County. The real estate industry is directly responsible for over 35,000 jobs, generating $30,898,247,900 from personal income taxes. Ladies and gentlemen, our industry is a leader, and we have a great deal of responsibility to ensure our next county executive understands our position on issues and the impact it'll have. With that said, I want to welcome to our forum the four candidates here this morning who are going to be all running for the Baltimore County executive position. And I'll ask everyone to wave to the crowd. I think we know who you are based on our names. We did have one candidate, unfortunately, late yesterday indicate to us that he would not make the event this morning. So we'll have the four candidates answering each of our questions as we move forward here. And the format of our forum will be as follows. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes for opening remarks. I'll ask a series of questions that were predetermined prior to today and were given to our candidates for review. The order of questions is random and selected by some highly educated, articulate guy like myself. Anyway, after answering these questions, each candidate will be allowed 1 minute for closing remarks. We will not have a question and answer session from the audience. However, some of the candidates will be staying afterwards to answer individual questions on a limited basis. So I'd like to begin our program and introduce our candidates. And I'll start immediately to my left first, Vicki Almond. Vicki, thanks for coming this morning.
Thank you.
Vicki, say a few words, just
Yes,
introduction.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming out today. I think this is going to be a very, very interesting session. I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to be a part of this panel. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Vicki. To Vicki's left, Jim Brochin.
This is the 2 minutes?
Yes.
Good morning. I'm Jim Brochin. I'm the senator from the 42nd District, which we're sitting in right now. I do want to give a shout out to my delegate, Chris West, who's here also, who has done a great job in the House delegates. I'm an insurance broker, so besides being a senator, I've been in the business community for years. I do medical, dental, short-term disability, long-term disability, and life. And as well as that, or in addition to that, in the Senate in my 16-year career, I have the highest MBRG rating of any Democrat in the Maryland Senate. And under my administration, development in the county is going to be open and fair. It's going to be transparent. It's going to be devoid of campaign contributions. And everybody's going to be on the same playing field. So there's not going to be a few select developers that are going to get everything, and then everybody else is going to be picking up the scraps. There will be an opportunity for everybody, and development's going to be based on its merits.
Thank you, Jim. And to Jim's left, Al Redmer.
Hi, good morning. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I appreciate you being here. And in addition to Chris West, Ed Hale Jr., who's a candidate for county council, is here. And I'd also like to introduce my son, Buddy Redmer. Buddy's a CPA, an agent with Keller Williams, and my personal real estate consultant. I am a lifelong Republican, a lifelong resident of Baltimore County, married, 2 sons, a daughter, 2 stepsons, and 7 grandchildren. Been very active in community affairs for 40 years, rec council, volunteer fire company, church council, chamber of commerce, etc. In real life, I've been in the insurance business my entire adult life. I have run large businesses and small, started a couple businesses from scratch. I served 13 years in the House of Delegates. My last 2 as the House Republican leader. I was appointed insurance commissioner under Governor Ehrlich, left, went back in the private sector, started another business, came back to the insurance administration and served Governor Hogan, who has endorsed me. The Maryland Insurance Administration, I run an organization of 240 employees, a $32 million budget. I have experience running large and small organizations, both in the public and private sector. I know how to set and communicate a vision, create expectations and accountability. I have experience in driving organizational results. Additionally, for a while, I have my real estate license myself, doing referral work, nothing else. I'm not a development expert, but with your help, I will be. And my commitment is to be open, transparent, collaborative, and will be engaged and visible, will not delegate my role to anybody else in the administration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Al. And to Al's left, John Olszewski.
Practice makes perfect. You got it right?
Absolutely, John. No, it's an easy one. Go up East Baltimore, you know what it is.
That's right.
Go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. Johnny Olszewski. I'm so excited to be here because I'm excited about the future of Baltimore County. And in Baltimore County, we have a good county, but we've settled for that when we should have a great county. We need to dream about what can be possible, and under an Olszewski administration, we'll make that a reality. I'm a proud Baltimore County native, a husband, a father, a former teacher who will fight for what's possible. As executive, I'm focused on taking those bold actions we need to improve our school system, create more jobs, and make local government more open, accessible, transparent, and connected. I ran for the House of Delegates when I was 23 because I grew up in the shadow of a steel mill, and I saw what happened when people had jobs and opportunities and that ladder to success. But I also saw what happened as those opportunities slipped away. And so I'm proud of the work that we did fostering a new rebirth in Eastern Baltimore County within the business community. And I'm proud to have helped pave the way, along with so many others, to let TradePoint Atlantic pave the way for tens of thousands of jobs, to have national retail like FedEx and Under Armour and Harley-Davidson be moving into Baltimore County. I'm proud of being the chief legislative sponsor of nationally recognized job training programs called Earn Maryland, where we partner with the private sector to identify opportunities for growth, to have been the lead sponsor of the job creation tax credit, to have supported things like public-private partnerships. So at the Port of Baltimore, we have thousands of people earning family-sustaining wages, to have been active in the creation of the Baltimore Regional Neighborhood Initiative, where we're partnering with communities and businesses to make sure all of us thrive. That's the same approach I'll take as county executive to replicate the successes we've seen in Eastern Baltimore County across all of Baltimore County. I'm looking forward to the discussion. I appreciate the invitation. And just to close the loop on electeds, I want to also recognize the chairman of the County Council, Councilman Julian Jones, who's joined us as well. So thank you again for letting me be here today.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. And now we're going to get on with the questions. They're going to fall under three broad categories, which are near and dear to all of us in this room today: education, real estate development, and of course, our old friend, taxes. So we're going to cover each of these areas, and I'm going to ask the questions. I'll change the order of who can respond as we go forward. I want responses from each of you to each question. And here we'll go. We'll begin with Vicki on this first question. It's going to be a reference to schools. Baltimore County has long been known for having great schools, with schools being a primary reason many families choose to locate in the county. Many of the county's schools are aging and in some cases overcrowded. How do you plan to deal with the county's school maintenance and new construction backlog, as well as overcrowding in schools, to maintain the overall high standard of Baltimore County schools? Vicki?
Thank you. Thank you. As a community activist for 30 years, way before I was elected to the county council, I have worked in our school system to promote education, to promote great education in our Baltimore County public schools. Baltimore County is a mature county, and with that, we have challenges with our school buildings, with our infrastructure, and we also have challenges inside the school building. We need great teachers, which I think we have many of those, but those teachers need the resources to teach. They need social workers, they need mental health advocates, they need psychologists in the schools. They need to be able to teach our kids and not be all those other things to our kids. We need a 10-year plan for maintenance, for renovation, and for new construction. We have not done that in the past. Schools have got to be a priority because so much depends on them. The housing stock depends on them. When you have a neighborhood with a good school, you have higher housing prices, you have better stock, you have less turnover, and it's important for that. A lot depends on those schools. And I think a lot depends on the economic development piece of it, where if you have economic development in the area, you're going to have people moving in because of the jobs, because of the amenities, and those are the kinds of things that will improve our school system. The maintenance is clear that we've neglected that over the years. And I don't think schools have become or have been our main priority. So we have to start with those being our main priority. We have to fix those schools in order to sustain our communities and sustain the good housing stock in our neighborhoods, because we need good people moving into our neighborhoods and supporting our schools. It all works together. It's all about balance, and it's all about bringing people together to solve these difficult problems. I've been endorsed by the teachers union. I have a great relationship with our superintendent. It's all about partnerships, it's all about relationships, and it's about tackling those tough problems in a spirit of teamwork and a spirit of getting things done. I am a team player. I can surround myself with the best and the brightest people to solve some of these issues moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicki. Same question to you, Jim.
Thanks. So I think the question is, where are we going to get the money to upgrade and build new schools? And it's going to come from a variety of places. First of all, Baltimore County has realized surpluses every year between $175 million and $350 million over the last 8 years. So I can't think of a better use to build schools than a one-time expensive surplus. So we're going to use surplus dollars to build new schools. Secondly, the next county executive has to have a good relationship with the governor, be it a Democrat or Republican. I work very well with Governor Hogan. I have a good relationship with the other contenders on the Democratic side, and you need to leverage that relationship to get more school construction dollars, something that I think has been deficient in the last 8 years of this administration. And a last place that you get the money is we have invested over $300 million in these handheld devices for kids. So every kid has a personal computer. In fact, we probably spent more dollars percentage-wise than any school system in the United States of America. And the problem is that while we've been doing this, we have maintenance issues with our schools. As the councilwoman said, we don't have enough school counselors. We don't have enough school psychologists. We're still looking for a third assistant principal at Lockraven Academy, which we've been looking for the last 10 months. So I feel like the infrastructure of our schools is crumbling while we're making sure that elementary school kids have handheld devices. And at the end of the day, if you go into some of these schools, they could have stations, especially in elementary schools, where these devices are, and you could have 5 or 6 stations and save literally tens of millions of dollars rather than spending all the money that we spend on this. And I think that money should be diverted into maintenance. It should be diverted into school construction. I think the New York Times did a piece, well, I don't think, I know the New York Times did a piece on our pace at which we've done this, and it's unprecedented in the country. And with the cloud over the former superintendent and his drive to do this, it makes anybody wonder what the motivation may have been and whether we shouldn't wait for more evidence-based solutions or evidence-based documentation to see if this is where the money needs to go, or if we shouldn't take care of school construction and school maintenance first and have the elementary school kids especially learn from stations and divert that money.
Thank you, Jim. Same question to you, Al.
Thank you. It's clear that for years, the county has failed to invest in basic infrastructure. That's not just schools. All around the county, buildings, facilities, maintenance, even employee training. And there is no long-term plan. There is no multi-year budget. And this is executive leadership 101. If elected, I'll work with the members of the county council, both Republicans and Democrat, members of the legislature, Republican and Democrat, and all of those interested stakeholders out there. We need to go around the county, identify all of the issues that are out there, including schools. Step 2, we need to quantify what those issues are, prioritize them, and create a long-term plan, and we'll do it with a multi-year budget, and we'll do it in an open, transparent, and collaborative manner. As mentioned, I have been endorsed by Governor Hogan. I have a great relationship with my 2 former colleagues from the House, Peter Francho, the comptroller, and Nancy Kopp, the treasurer. We will partner with them to get state resources, as opposed to the current environment where we've had an adversary at the county executive level. Day 1, we're going to create the Office of Inspector General. We will systematically go through county government, every department, look at what we do, how we do it, and why we do it, to create the budget problems that we have. The stories are horrifying, including the fact that the county still buys carbon paper by the box load. And finally, I think we need to be creative, and we need to explore public-private partnerships to fix the pent-up demand of school buildings that we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Al. And finally, John, same question.
Yeah, nothing is more important than education in Baltimore County. And we need to have schools and a school system that affirms the dignity and value both of the students who attend, the teachers who teach, and the families who send their children there. As county executive, I will go all in on education, and it will be my top priority. I think that's important for this room because there's nothing better that we can invest in to strengthen communities, to encourage families to stay or move in, and to facilitate positive growth. I've released a comprehensive education plan recently that talks both not just about the infrastructure, but also about our people, because a strong school system is both infrastructure and people. I still remember the 21-year-old Johnny O who was teaching in a trailer at Patapsco High School that had a hole in the floor until our winter break. That trailer is still there. We have schools that have brown drinking water. We have schools that are literally sliding into the ground here in Baltimore County in 2018. That's unacceptable, and it will be fixed. So my infrastructure plan calls for $2 billion of investment to create new schools, to address overcrowding, and to finish the repairs that are needed across our county, including taking trailers out of service. It's a temporary solution for what has become a permanent problem. I also will invest significantly in people and have called for a 20% increase in teacher pay, as well as hiring the long over-needed hiring of additional resources, whether that's school counselors, pupil personnel workers, psychologists, and additional teachers, so our class sizes shrink. There's nothing better that we can invest in than our schools. And as Baltimore County executive, I'll do that. Schools haven't been our priority in Baltimore County, and they should have been. There's been ample opportunity to address those needs, and so I think it's time that we have an executive who actually is committed to doing that. And we have a new approach. I'm proud to be the only person in this race who's actually spent time in a classroom and understand those needs from that perspective. I also was a Baltimore County school grad myself. I was a member of the Baltimore County School Board, and I'll be an executive who sends my 2-year-old little girl to our school system because I think it's important that leaders lead by example and are a part of the solution moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Okay, we're going to move on to a different topic, and actually the first responder here, I'll ask Jim to respond first to this question regarding pace of development in the county. According to census figures, Baltimore County has grown 2.5% over the past 6 years. It's an average of a little over 0.4% every year. Some candidates have claimed Baltimore County is overdeveloped. How does this growth rate square with the level of development in the county? Jim?
So I think there are some places where we can increase the pace of development, and I think there are some places in the county where we should rapidly decrease the pace of development. So let me be specific. Trade Point Atlantic is a perfect example where we need to rapidly increase development. I was there about 6 months ago taking a tour. They showed me this big map on the wall. 2/3 of it had the companies that Baltimore County is recruiting, and the top third was barren. And I looked at the top third and I said, who's coming in here and who's investing in here? And the response from the executives at Trade Point Atlantic was, we don't have water and sewer here. And I said, why not? And they said, well, the county told us to get in line and stand in line for that. That's an amazing site. It's right off of 95. There's water there. We could be the leaders. In fact, I've read studies that show that this type of infrastructure doesn't exist on anywhere else in the Mid-Atlantic region. So we should rapidly, as a county, give interest-free loans and do other things to make Trade Point Atlantic and have the opportunity for business and redevelopment. In my opinion, that should be our #1 priority. When I was chairman of the Senate, well, I'm still chairman of the Senate delegation, one of the things we did 2 years ago is we teamed up with the people in Guinness who wanted to build a Guinness plant here in Baltimore County. There's 2 of them in the world, Dublin, Ireland, and now Relay, Maryland. And I helped lead the county delegation, and we unanimously passed legislation that made it amenable for Guinness to do business here in Baltimore County. It's a tremendous economic development boom. But no, I don't believe we should do any more development in the valleys, whether it's Green Spring Valley, whether it's the Falls Road corridor. I think that we have a quality of life here in Baltimore County that all of us go home to and enjoy. I think all of us work way, way too hard and pay way too many taxes, where when you go home, you want and deserve a quality of life where your neighborhoods have buffer zones and other things that make the quality of life better. So there are redevelopment opportunities, and I've expressed where I would put them if I'm county executive, but there are areas out in the valleys where I think we should try and continue to maintain the quality of life that we have.
Thank you, Jim. Same question to you, Al.
So I think that we are never going to see the growth that we should have until or unless we first move the needle and fix the growing issues with crime and education in our schools. If we keep going down the path that we're having with increased crime, deteriorating education, folks aren't going to want to live here. Additionally, we have some of the worst congestion, not only in the region, but in the country. We need to address transportation, education, and crime. I think that there are plenty of opportunities to redevelop existing communities, and I know we're going to talk about infill developments later, but we need to look at the economics of infill development so that it makes more sense to build in existing communities. The other thing is, again, it's clear from my perspective that there is no plan when it comes to economic development in Baltimore County. For probably 20 of the last 30 years, I have served on multiple local chambers of commerce in Baltimore County. Most recently, I was on the board of the Chesapeake Gateway Chamber of Commerce. If you remember the big growth we expected to receive from BRAC, the board of directors was unhappy about the results. We brought in the economic development team from Baltimore County. There was no plan. There was no plan. Unless there is a plan, we're not going to have success. And then finally, we don't have the right level of customer service, and that trickles down into the development process as well. An example I heard in Northeast Baltimore County, preliminary plans were submitted and approved to proceed, but when it came time to start selling houses, the rules changed. I'm told that the rules were arbitrary. So I'm going to just pause and give you my philosophy when it comes to regulation. And I invite you to check with anybody that interacts with the Maryland Insurance Administration. Number one, the rules have to be clear and they have to be consistent. We're going to enforce the rules. We're going to enforce all of the rules, no more, no less. And at the end of that, if we believe we need to do more or less, or if anybody else believes we need to do more or less, then we'll go to the county council and have that conversation, and they will elect to change the rules or not. Thank you. We will not make it up. Thank you.
Thank you, Al. Same question to you, John.
Sure. An Olszewski administration will focus on revitalization and reinvestment in communities that can support growth. Because if we don't grow, we can't fund our priorities. And that's the top way that I'll fund all of my priorities as county executive. Baltimore County has always been a desirable place to live, work, raise a family, and I think growth is an important indicator to our successes. My fear is that a lot of our growth has been propelled by the exodus of individuals from Baltimore City. And so we have to make sure that we are not only providing the infrastructure within Baltimore County to make sure we grow, be that good schools, economic opportunity, a strong transportation network, safe neighborhoods, but we also have to be a strong regional partner, because if we don't shore up Baltimore City, Baltimore County will continue to see, I think, slowed growth and additional challenges. If our trajectory keeps pace, my calculations are that we'll have about 3,200 additional people calling Baltimore County home each year, meaning our capacity for housing needing to increase by about 12 or 1,250 units. So we have to make this a holistic approach. We cannot be anti-growth, but we can be smart growth. And a lot of that will focus, as I think has been identified, on revitalization and reinvestment efforts. I do believe Baltimore County has the capacity to support development in smart and focused ways, particularly focusing on revitalization and in communities that can support growth, like some in eastern Baltimore County and in the Owings Mills areas, which are actually, I think, long overdue for some of that reinvestment.
Thank you, John. Vicki, to you. Pace of development.
We do need smart growth in Baltimore County. We also need housing stock. If you listen to the constituents, which Baltimore County government needs to begin doing, there are folks out there who do not have the housing choices that they need to have. Our senior population is growing by leaps and bounds, and many of them don't want to live in high-rises anymore. They want the first floor masters. They want to still have a home where they can have their grandchildren and their kids and still be a part of the community instead of tucked away in a high-rise somewhere. They have said that. They have talked about that. It's what they need. And it's time, I think, that we listened to our citizenry to figure out where we're going moving forward. So much depends on economic growth and economic development. That's where the tax base will come from, and that's what we need. If you look at Foundry Row, that is something that has changed Owings Mills completely. It has changed that corridor on Reisterstown Road. It has become a center for gathering. It has become a cornerstone for Owings Mills in Baltimore County. We need that kind of smart growth on our major corridors. And with that smart growth, as I said, comes tax base, it comes more revenue, and that's what we need to move the county forward. There aren't going to be surpluses that we're going to be able to use. We have to increase revenue, and we do that through smart economic development. We do that with partnerships. We do that with talking with each other. We do that to sustain our communities. Smart growth. When we have young folks who are living in the city, they want to move to the county when they start having their families. We need that housing stock to be ready for them. And we need the older communities to be just as good as they were for our parents and their parents before them. There's a lot of work to do in Baltimore County, but I believe that all of it works together. Economic development, good communities, safe communities, it all works together. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicki. As we move on to the third topic, and actually it's going to be a related question to what we just talked about, I'm going to ask Al to respond first, and we'll move to his left after that. It involves infill and redevelopment. In general, Baltimore County is a built-out county with few large tracts of land left. Most of the county's future growth will be infill and redevelopment. Unfortunately, infill and redevelopment are both expensive and challenging projects as compared to the development of raw land with few neighbors. If elected, how do you plan to incentivize infill and redevelopment of the county's older, less affluent neighborhoods? Are you willing to examine waiving requirements for open space, reforestation, stormwater management, et cetera, to remove many of the barriers that currently exist? Al?
So, yeah, thank you. And as I mentioned, I'm not a development expert, but with your help, I soon will be. But yes, we'll be willing to examine any means to remove barriers to building quality and affordable housing. And as mentioned, and as I mentioned previously, these infill developments are not as cost effective to be affordable, to build affordable housing. So we need to look at it. Specifically, we need to review each aspect of the development process. We obviously need to maintain that community input, but we need to improve customer service and efficiency. And as a business private sector guy, I've been doing process improvements for years. And, you know, folks will tell you how they will govern if elected. Let me tell you how I do govern and have for decades. I mentioned, and I think this is important to understand my philosophy a little bit. I regulate the insurance industry. Every year, we bring in the carriers, and we talk about the state of affairs, what's going well, what's not going well, et cetera. And we talk specifically about the insurance laws, the regulations, the competitive environment, and our own operations as to how we regulate them. We create the laundry list of issues that they're concerned about, and then we work on them. And we work on them for a period of months. We get to the changes internally that we can make, and we do that successfully. If it requires legislation, we then vet it with consumer groups and the insurance producers out there, and then we work collaboratively with a game plan where we go to the Maryland General Assembly to get the changes that we need. I've been doing it for years in an open, transparent, and collaborative process, and I believe that's the kind of process that we need to use in order to streamline the development process and to gain efficiencies. Thank you.
Thank you. On to you, John.
Thanks. As I mentioned earlier, infill and redevelopment has to be a priority in Baltimore County, and it will be under our administration. Proud of the work that we are already seeing in eastern Baltimore County in terms of redeveloping, and in particular, the work that's being done at Trade Point Atlantic. I think that's an example of what's possible when we collaborate and come together. I know that the development review and approval process in Baltimore County is oftentimes cumbersome, it is expensive, it results in delays, and one of the best things that we can and that I will do as executive is address that process so that it is more business friendly to come in and do business generally, but particularly in those areas needing additional support. I think that we can provide flexible ways to meet requirements. I don't know about waiving them. I believe that we can provide other incentives for infill and redevelopment projects. And I think that we can commit resources to specifically target those areas to navigate the review and approval process here in Baltimore County for those important and much needed projects in infill and redevelopment. As always, it will be collaborative, it will be inclusive, it will be listening to the business community about what's working and what's not working. We'll look to other jurisdictions that are doing it successfully, and we will commit to making sure that we make it happen here in Baltimore County.
Thank you, John. On to you, Vicki. Same question.
Thank you. I'd like to go back again to Foundry Row, a case in point of redevelopment at its finest. Solo Cup was an old manufacturing company on prime land that was just sitting there and not going anywhere. And with Foundry Row, we were able to, again, turn that part of Reisterstown Road and Owings Mills around, and you can see the improvements up and down Reisterstown Road because of that project. It brought jobs. It brought economic growth. It turned Owings Mills around, as I said. Our process is cumbersome. Having been on the council for 8 years, I've seen what Baltimore County does well, and I've seen where we need improvement. And the permitting department is one place where we do need improvement. Do we need an ombudsman who will help navigate the system? We also need technology that will streamline the system. Even though Baltimore County expresses the point that we are way ahead in technology, we're not. We're way behind. And I think if we turn our technology department loose, we will be able to see improvements in a very short time for permitting, for the development process moving forward. And a lot of it is about communication. It's about talking to each other. And as county executive, my door would always be open for creativity, for asking people what their ideas are and how they'd like to see Baltimore County moving forward. And you all are a big, big part of that. This job shouldn't be that hard. We should be able to talk to each other and figure it out. And that's one of the things that I will do as county executive. Our permits are way down. In 1996, there were 6,100. Last year, 750. We need to improve that, folks. We need to get moving, and we need to let our economic development department go out there, Grab the big companies and bring them in. Incentivize them to come in with revitalization areas, with tax credits. Moving Baltimore County forward is going to take growth, and we need to do it. It's going to take smart growth, but we need all of you to help do that. We need those team players. We need that communication. We need the tax revenue from economic development to build those schools and to fix our infrastructure, because we're not going to do it with the present budget that we have. So we have to find ways to move forward. All of you out there must know people who are carpenters, who are plumbers, who are electricians, elevator operators. We have to bring those careers back to Baltimore County. And by doing that, we can provide more jobs. We can bring those jobs to Baltimore County. And we can tell large companies, hey, we've got the answers here in Baltimore County. Come and join us. We almost lost McCormick. One of the biggest companies, we almost lost them just for lack of, oh, well, they're here, whatever. Incentivizing these companies, just like we did Black & Decker, to stay here. We need to retain the companies we have, and we need to move forward bringing new economic development into the counties. Our old neighborhoods, redevelopment is key. It's absolutely key, so we have the housing stock that people require. It's time that Baltimore County government took care of the needs of the community instead of the other way around. We need to say, what do you need, and we need to provide that. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicki. On to you, Jim.
So a couple things. First of all, the state of Maryland and Baltimore County gave Black & Decker millions of dollars years ago, and they took a walk. So I think now part of them is back, but 90% is up in Connecticut. One of the things we can do when we redevelop in redevelopment is we can redevelop existing corridors, and we can do it with interest-free loans, which I would support. I don't support picking one developer over another for taxpayer-funded bailouts. But what I do support is revitalizing the Liberty Road corridor, giving an interest-free loan to the people who want to take over the Pikesville Armory, giving an interest-free loan in Towson so we can support an infrastructure of Towson where there's already water and sewer and everything laid out there. So that's the type of redevelopment we would do in my administration, and interest-free loans is the way that I would do it. I don't think that at the end of the day, it's the smartest thing to do to waive fees for open space, to waive reforestation fees. If you take a look at some of the really good developments around Baltimore County, they have some green space incorporated in it. They have a plan that's had buy-in from the neighborhoods. I went to a community meeting about 6 or 7 months ago, and it dealt with Presbyterian Home and the developer who's working there. And I was really inspired by the way they did it because they got buy-in from the neighborhood early. They put their project together. They incorporated all the green space on the front lawn, keeping that green space at Presbyterian Home. They're building assisted living, which the councilwoman talked about. Actually, it's senior living, not assisted living, which the councilwoman talked about that there is a need for, and there is a need in Baltimore County. And the buy-in that they got, and what I heard from my constituents when I was there is, this is what we want. As far as the type of infill development, we want buy-in, we want green space, and we want something that's livable and where the developer spoke to the community. I thought it was a win-win for everyone, and I'm supportive of that, and that's the type of infill development I would support in Baltimore County.
Thank you, Jim. We're going to move on to a zoning issue and question, and I'm going to ask John first to respond, then we'll move from him. There have been a number of controversial, high-profile instances of downzoning of land in the county over the last decade. In the real estate community, downzoning makes predictability and development impossible, but to other community members, downzoning seems an appropriate use of the county's zoning and land use power. Please explain your views on property rights as they relate to zoning, especially downzoning. John?
Sure. I think the question says it all. Predictability is key, and fluctuations from down zone to up zone to down zone to somewhere in between isn't helpful to the real estate community. It's not helpful or fair to our local communities, and it needs to stop. We need to have clear guidelines about when changes are appropriate so that decisions are based on the merit and that they aren't political decisions. We need to have a plan, not just for zoning, but for our growth generally. Just like we need to have a plan for economic development and our schools. Speaking of all the trades and the plumbers and the mechanics and the electricians, like I'm proud to have all of those organizations support me because they know I have a plan, not just what I've done, but what I'll do as executive to replicate and grow those opportunities. And we'll do the same thing with zoning, with growth, with economic development. We will have a plan in place that is predictable, that everyone understands, and that we all work together around to develop and cultivate and execute.
Thank you. Vicki, same question.
I will say that zoning is one of the most important things that the Baltimore County Council does. The administration really has no part in it. It's all about the county council. It's a year-long process where we listen to all sides of an issue, and we make our decisions in a balanced way. They're not easy decisions. It's one of the hardest things that we do, but also one of the most important things that we do. We look at the master plan. We consult with our lawyers. We consult with homeowners. We consult with property owners. We talk to people. We look at that master plan and see how we want Baltimore County to be moving forward. It's important that we have investors like yourselves in our communities. You are not the bad guys. You're our partners. And without you, we can't move Baltimore County forward. With you, we can move Baltimore County forward. But zoning is strictly Baltimore County Council. The administration, the county executive's office has nothing to do with it. It is the job of the Baltimore County Council. They can look at the zoning regulations, and the administration can ask the county council to do that, but it is not something that the county executive has a role in. And I do believe that in that zoning process, communication, listening to all sides is key. You all need certainty. We can't keep changing things from year to year. And as a county council person, I have been through 2 zoning cycles, and I have gone against some investors in our community for the proper economic development. And I have also gone with some of the investors in our community because they have good ideas. We're looking at smart growth, and zoning is a part of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicki. Go ahead to Jim.
Thank you. So I have a different take on this, and I think the councilwoman's right when she talks about that it is solely in the hands of the council person. And I think we need to look at changing that. I think it's too much power in one person, and whether it goes for upzoning or downzoning, which hurts some of your businesses. We have a planning board. The county executive gets 5 appointees. The council person, each council person, I believe, gets 1 other. The planning board are the professionals. The council people are certainly elected by the people, but we need to have more checks and balances in the system because it's not fair the way it is now. It's not fair to the development community. The uncertainty is not fair to the activists of the community. So all around, we have a system that we realize is dysfunctional. So one of the things that I would look at if I'm county executive is another check so the council person doesn't have the last say. For example, if you took the planning board after the council person makes a recommendation after comprehensive rezoning, and the planning board by maybe 8 out of 12 votes, 8/12 could overrule the council person on zoning decisions, both positive, both upzoning or downzoning. The planning board are the professionals. These are the people who are on there, who have gone through the intricacies, who are supposed to be more non-political. I think we have to take some of the politics out of it, and I think that creates more certainty, and I think we need to put more checks and balances in the system.
Thank you, Jim. To you, Al, that's zoning.
Yeah, thank you. So while I recognize the role of the county executive and the need for the county executive to stay in their lane, I'll reiterate that I plan on being an active and engaged county executive. When it comes to zoning decisions, I'm a process guy. As a business guy, I'm a process guy. And I believe that zoning decisions should be consistent with that master plan. And if we don't like the master plan, we need to figure out a way to change it, but I believe that it should be consistent. I also believe that county has a role in determining what is the highest and best use for property. I think that's a logical role. And as a strong supporter of property rights, I do not believe that downzoning should be done unilaterally. That those affected should have expanded appeal rights and or administrative hearings to advocate their case. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Al. Appreciate it. The next topic, before I get to it, we're running ahead on time, and I just wanted to throw in this little story because it's kind of for many of us in here, taxes are kind of a hot button, and they certainly are for the moderator here this morning. I go back to my first, I have 3 sons, and when my middle son was in first grade, he was tasked at the end of the year with answering this question from a teacher. And each of the kids, they were going to bring home this nice story to answer the question. My dad is special because, and he was going to deliver it to me on Father's Day. Well, most of the kids responded, taught me how to throw a ball, taught me how to swim, taught me how to read a book, and all these nice answers. And then you get down to the thing, Michael M., my son, that taxes are bad. So the teacher looked at him 4 times and said, "Are you sure this is the response you want to give to your father?" So he said, "Yeah, absolutely. That's all he does is walk around the house and complain about taxes all the time." Anyway, that's a true story. Middle son, that's all I can say. I'm a neglected middle child myself, so I could relate. But in any event, taxes, we get to taxes. It's a favorite topic of mine. Here's the question, and I'll ask Vicki to respond first to it. Baltimore County's budget is currently stretched thin with existing obligations, while many on the stage are also proposing well-intentioned but expensive new programming. Without citing reduction of wasteful spending, please explain how you plan to fund new and existing programs given the county's current budget constraints. Specifically, are you planning new taxes?
Ooh. Thank you for starting with me. I greatly appreciate that. In order to do all the things that we need to do with our schools, with our infrastructure, and Lord knows we have a lot to do, and taxes have not been increased in 27 years. I'm not sure that was a favor, actually. I'm not sure it was the right thing to do. But moving forward, in my administration, we would be increasing revenue. And one of the ways to do that is with tourism legislation that I just passed. For every dollar invested, we get a $25 return. It's a huge investment in Baltimore County. Marketing our great county, east, north, south, and west, is one of the things that we need to do that we don't do now. There are so many hidden gems, and as a candidate for county executive, I have been all over this county. And when you leave the little bubble of Towson, and you go out there and you look at all the magnificent things that we have to offer people, but people on the west side don't know about the east side. I mean, is there some kind of fence or line or something that we just can't cross? But it is amazing what we have to offer all over Baltimore County. And I think that helps bring businesses here to provide economic development. It helps bring people here to want to live in our communities. When you have the amenities and you have the places to go, the things to do, the recreation for families to do together. And we have that already, we just don't market it very well. So tourism is something I think that would bring in revenue to Baltimore County that would help with these great plans that we want to do moving forward. The success of Baltimore County really depends on our growth, on taking care of the issues we have with our schools, with our infrastructures, and bringing economic development into the county to move us forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicki. On to you, Jim.
So, no, I don't plan on raising taxes. And in a 16-year career in the Maryland Senate, I voted against the gas tax, I voted against the sales tax, I voted against the income tax, I voted against the corporate income tax. and I voted against a host of a number of taxes, including I wanted to keep the increase in the tolls on the road, on the bridges, whether it be the Fort McHenry or the Harbor Tunnel or the Key Bridge. I wanted to keep that in the hands of the legislature, and I voted to keep it in the hands of the legislature. I was not on the prevailing side, and the Department of Transportation can raise those taxes anytime they want. I think it's bad business, and I think it is doesn't make your legislators accountable, which is what we should be. If somebody wants to raise taxes, they should say they want to raise it, and they should vote on it, vote for it. I voted against it. But the other part of the question is, where are you going to get the money from, and are you going to cut? I mentioned the surpluses that the county's had over the years, so it probably means that we're taxed fairly in a very healthy manner. So I'm going to use some of that surplus money, and we're going to be transparent with that surplus money and let people know what it is and how it's going to be spent. The other thing is, there are things in the departments in Baltimore County that are underfunded, and there are things where there can probably be some cuts. And we're going to sit down with department heads, and we're probably going to end up increasing funding for education, and we're probably going to increase money for social services and things like that. But there are other departments where there may be some opportunity to do cuts. And in my administration, we're going to put the best and the brightest people there, people that are a heck of a lot smarter than I am, that are going to come in with recommendations for what needs to be increased and what needs to be cut, and then we're going to move accordingly.
Thank you, Jim. Al?
So while I will not cite reduction of wasteful spending, you really can't have this conversation without talking about the reduction of wasteful spending. And I'm going to repeat something that I said previously, only because I believe it's critical not just for the county, but for you. And that is, we need to fix crime, education, and transportation, because they directly, as you know, affect property values, which directly affect the revenues that we receive from those property values. So all of this stuff is intertwined. We need a comprehensive, holistic review of all of it. We will explore creative public and private partnerships. We can't pay for things the way we used to without exploring creative options. And again, as I mentioned previously, we will not be able to do all of this in year one. There are pent-up demands all around the county. We need to identify those needs, quantify them, prioritize them, and have that long-term plan and a multi-year budget. So it's not going to happen in year one. It might be year two. It might be year 7. But there needs to be a comprehensive look at this stuff.
Thank you, Al. On to you, John.
Sure, thank you. I think it's important that we fund our priorities for a lot of the reasons that have been mentioned. It's the only way we grow, it's the only way we thrive, it's the only way we compete, it's the only way we're successful. And make no mistake about it, we are in direct competition with Howard County and Montgomery County and Virginia and DC and fill in the blank. And if Baltimore County isn't meeting the needs on schools and economic activity and public safety and a transportation network, we're going to fall behind. And those stressors that we're already facing are going to become even greater. So first and foremost, my plan is to grow the economy through those investments, which, as the commissioner said, will increase property values, which will increase revenues. As we attract more than that 0.4% growth every year, that will significantly increase our revenues on an annualized basis. We do need to be streamlined and efficient, and I will conduct a full comprehensive audit of both the county school and the county school system, as well as county government, to identify waste, fraud, and abuse. As county executive, I will enter into strategic partnerships, both with the state and other governments. So, for example, as part of our schools plan, we want to enact a 21st century schools program modeled after what was successfully enacted by Baltimore City, where the state significantly ramped up their investment in the school stock. Baltimore County has the second oldest school stock in the state of Maryland, so we are worthy of similar investments from the state, and also just getting our additional fair share from the state. Also replicating things like the public-private partnerships I talked about earlier with the Port of Baltimore and Ports America, which enabled additional job growth, more people working in the area, living in the area, and we have to get our priorities right. It was mentioned earlier that we spend about $300 million on a laptop program that, especially in the earlier grades, is probably not the most appropriate use of our dollars. So we can reappropriate those resources to make sure that we are funding our investments without having to turn to new revenue.
Thank you, John. We're into our final question, and after all the candidates have a chance to answer that question, we'll give each candidate a final 1 minute for closing remarks. This question, Jim, I'm going to direct it to you first, regarding impact fees. To the real estate development community, county-imposed impact fees raise cost of construction, business creation, and home prices. On the other hand, some counties and advocates see impact fees as a source of needed revenue for public infrastructure such as schools and roads. What is your opinion on impact fees for residential and commercial development? And also, please comment on the current county approval process, which some say is expensive and cumbersome and adds significant costs to the development/construction process. Many projects face delays, and in some cases, a single person can file an appeal and delay projects for months. What's your plan to improve the process? Two-folded question.
So I think what's clear is that we have a breakdown in the approval process, and what you just articulated is a major part of it, and I think there's universal agreement. The question is, what do you do about it? And as I've said before, I think we need a system of checks and balances that if we're going to change the system and the way and take away the last right away from the council person, in return, there has to be a limit on the appeals and on the limited amount of time you can go to court. It's not fair to anybody if you hold up projects for years and years and years, and there has to be some type of recognition that the developer and the development community put money in, did this, and doesn't expect to be trying to break ground 10 years later. So there has to be a trade-off on that. The second part is on impact fees and what happens with our schools. There are some jurisdictions across the state, I think I read about one, it's either in Frederick or Anne Arundel County, where if a school is at 90% capacity, a developer can't develop there within 5 years. And then after 5 years, and that's in the community, they reevaluate it, see where the school is at capacity, and move further. We can't let residential development occur in neighborhoods where schools are overcrowded. It's not fair to anybody, and if developers want to stay away from impact fees, you can't tax the road system and tax the schools and expect to be able to walk away. I think that rather than having impact fees, I think the fair thing to do would be to take a look at what these counties have done, where it says if schools are at certain capacity, there can't be development there until that capacity goes down. Nobody wants overcrowded schools for their kids, and we have to be fair to the public school system and make sure that if there is development, it's not in areas where there's overcrowding.
Thank you, Jim. On to you, Al, impact fees.
So, previously we discussed the economics of smaller infill developments and the difficulty. I don't know that impact fees are the solution to that. I think it just exacerbates the problem. The current approval process is certainly cumbersome, long, and inefficient. It needs to be streamlined and more concise. Also, there needs to be a process to fix that. So again, I'm going to go back to my current business operation. I'm the state insurance commissioner. One of our roles is to approve products before they can be sold. The insurance carrier brings them to us, we review them. When I arrived in January of 2015, the backlog for property and casualty products was about 2,400. Backlog of 2,400. The oldest submission was from February of 2012. 3 years it had been sitting there. Today, the backlog is about 350, 80% of which have been received within the last 90 days. An incredible turnaround, and we did it with the same head count that we had in 2015. So for decades, my role has been to seek efficiency and process improvements, and I will do it as your county executive. Thank you.
Thank you, Al. On to you, John.
Thank you. As has been mentioned earlier, we are largely built out, and so a lot of our build is going to be infill, and it's going to be redevelopment. So a lot of the conversation about impact fees, I think, is going to be much harder to address because we're not talking about new impacts. We're talking about revitalizing and reinvesting in existing neighborhoods. So as we do that, particularly if we have additional density to meet the needs of a growing county, I think we have to find collaborative ways that isn't a one-size-fits-all approach to identify the potential impacts of developments and work collaboratively to meet those. I think the larger issue for facilitating that growth and having those conversations about collaboration is addressing that cumbersome and expensive approval process that's currently in place. That means that in Baltimore County, we need to have dedicated teams to making sure that we are moving these approvals along, not just for the business community, but for individual residents. It means that we need to have technology that's not stuck 20 years ago, that actually allows you to go and interact with your government in a real-time way as opposed to being stuck in Towson. Interesting sidebar, we have this wonderful summer event every year. It's June 12th, if anyone wants to come. But my wife went to get a one-day tent permit that is the exact same permit that we do every single year for this event that we hold. And she was in Towson for 6 hours to get the exact same permit approved that we've been doing for the past 8 years. It was the exact same location, exact same amount of time, exact same tent, all the make, mod, like you name it, and it was exact. In Baltimore County, we should be able to have that kind of information online, have it be saved, and just hit resubmit or renew, and it's done. But it's that kind of mentality of how do we become more customer service centric, both to our business community and to our residents. And then lastly, on the timing, maybe it is time that we start saying, again, for all of our residents and our business interests, we will set a time certain that our reviews will not take longer than this. We won't allow reviews to linger and drag on and cost money and add uncertainty to the market, because that's the only way we're going to keep the businesses that we have and, frankly, encourage new people to come to Baltimore County and the Baltimore region to be a part of our process.
Thank you, John. Go ahead, Vicki.
As we've said, Baltimore County is a mature county. And imposing impact fees now, it's a little late. If we were going to do that, we should have done it 20 years ago. The revenue projected would not be significant in Baltimore County as we know it now. Revitalization, redevelopment is the key to prospering communities. Proactive approval, time, and competing with other counties for economic development. I have a story. My office is on the second floor of the old courthouse. I have to walk past permits every day. And a couple of times I've decided to sit on the bench and start a conversation with some of the people just to see why they're there. And I sat down with one woman and I said, "Oh, why are you here today?" And she said, "Well, I took a day off from work and had to get a babysitter for my kids to get a fence permit for my house." I said, "Just for your house?" She said, "Yeah, just for my house." So she sat there for 5 hours and waited for the permit for the fence for her house. Baltimore County needs to desperately improve our customer service. We should be an example of customer service, whether it's a lady getting a permit for her fence, whether it's you getting permits to build your housing stock, whether it's businesses getting permits to improve their businesses, to start their businesses. Those are the kinds of things, the small details that we have stopped doing in Baltimore County that we need to begin to do again, and customer service is one of those things. We should be an example of customer service. And having constituents sitting for 6 hours on a bench to get anything is ridiculous. Having the development process go on and on and on and on with the appeals process that goes on and on and on and on is a waste of time, a waste of money, a waste of resources. We need to streamline that. A lot of ways that we can streamline a lot of these processes is with our IT department. And I have spoken with them. They have a vision that is pretty incredible for Baltimore County. They just need to be let loose and go for it. And I think as county executive, these are the things we want to concentrate on in the beginning. We want to tackle the details, tackle the small things that we can actually take care of and improve. I think that's important moving forward.
Thank you, Vicki. I'm now going to allow the candidates some closing remarks, and I'll start to my far left. John, I'll allow you to go first. Tell us why, as a county executive candidate, why me? Answer that question, if you will, as for county executive.
Well, thank you again for the opportunity. I want to thank the other candidates for office for showing up. I know that it's quite the sacrifice on your family and individually how taxing that is. So I want to thank all of you for putting your name on the ballot and being a part of this. As I mentioned earlier, I'm running because it's time that we think bigger about what we can be in Baltimore County. If you are looking for a partner who will be persistent and passionate and dedicated to a bold vision for what's possible with our schools, with economic development, with transparency and connectedness, with collaboration, Johnny Olszewski is the guy you want as your next county executive. As a legislator here in Baltimore County, I never waited for crises or opportunities to do big things. We just did. We didn't talk about what was needed. We took action to revitalize and reinvigorate our industries in Eastern Baltimore County, to create a nationally recognized job training program, to create a housing and business initiative in Bernie, the Regional Neighborhood Initiative, to foster a stronger, more collaborative educational process. And that's exactly what I'll do as county executive. You know, I woke up this morning and got to spend a half an hour with my 2-year-old daughter, Daria. And I see this election and I see the future of this county through her eyes. And we need to be thinking about where are we in 40 years, not in 4. And so as executive, that will be my frame of reference. That is why I am so passionate about this race, because it really is about both as individuals, what kind of communities are we going to foster as individuals, and then wrapping that in, it also matters about our business community. So I'm grateful for the opportunity. I hope that you'll join us in our efforts to build a better Baltimore County. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Al.
First, thank you for sitting through all this. Quite frankly, I think you all need a hobby myself. That's for those of you that happen to be a Republican and you're voting in the June primary, my name is Al Redmer, and I'm the guy that showed up. Thank you. You know, I think I said most of what I wanted to say, so I'm just going to tell you a quick story. In 1982, I was 26 years old and elected president of the Perry Hall Improvement Association. That's when Perry Hall was blowing up to become White Marsh and Honeygo and Nottingham and everything else. And you know the drill. Nobody there in 1982 wanted anybody else to move in. So here I am at 26, and I get thrown into the zoning and development issues. And it was a life learning experience. And as now, I was pretty engaged and active, but worked in an open, transparent, and collaborative manner. So it's been the same drill for 40 years. But interestingly, as president of the Perry Hall Improvement Association, especially being 26, 27, 28 years old, I did it for 8 years. And I dealt with Baltimore County a lot, as you can imagine, and I had the unreturned phone calls and was consistently blown off for whatever reason. Then a miraculous thing happened. In 1990, I got 12,000 votes and was elected to the Maryland House of Delegates. And the same unresponsive bureaucrats that blew me off for 8 years couldn't jump through hoops fast enough to deliver the services for my constituents. And for me, that was a sad indictment of government. And since then, it helped instill in me a passion for customer service, as well as a passion for being on time. I was number 1 here today at about 7:30, I think. I told Al I'm not bright, but I am prompt. And with that, again, if elected county executive, I will be engaged, open, transparent, and collaborative. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Al. Jim?
First of all, thank you for moderating, and thank you, everybody, for spending your time here with us this morning. I've represented the 42nd District for 16 years, and I probably could have run for the Senate again and won fairly easily. And I think that I leave a legacy in my district, which is a very divided district between Democrats and Republicans, of someone who's honest, somebody who has integrity, and most importantly, for the next job for county executive, somebody who listens to both sides of an issue, takes the emotional side out of it, and comes to and brings people together to form a consensus. I've gotten along with my Republican delegates easily, as well as I've gotten along with my Democratic delegate. I'm running for county executive for one of the main reasons is I do want to end pay-to-play politics in Baltimore County. I don't want campaign contributions to be the factor on why a development project moves forward. I want to take the money out of the system so the project is based on its merit. If it's a good project, it moves forward, and that's what we need to do. It needs to be open, it needs to be fair, it needs to be transparent, and everybody needs to be on the same playing field as we move projects forward. Our citizens deserve that, they expect that of us, and that's what I plan to do if I become elected. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Vicki?
Yes, thank you for moderating.
got it.
Excellent job.
Appreciate it.
Thank you
Thank
all
you.
for being here today. I have to address the pay-to-play piece. It is just not true. It does not happen at the council level. It does not happen. We are 7 people who come together to make tough decisions. We are less partisan than any other form of government because most of the issues that we tackle are quality of life issues, schools, public safety. Those are things that we talk about every day. Picking up your trash, making sure your snow's plowed. Those are the things that we deal with at the council level in county government. Moving forward as county executive, one of the first things I would do is to change the attitude and the atmosphere in Baltimore County government. The administration needs to connect more with the council. They're 2 separate forms of government, but we need to talk to each other. We need to communicate. There don't need to be any surprises from either form. It needs to be a collaborative effort. We're all here for the same reason, and that's to make Baltimore County more livable. We need to pay attention to the details, which we haven't done in a long time. So it's time to take a step back. Take a look at what we have, take a look at what we do well, and take a look at where we can improve. It's about partnerships. All of you know what it's like to have relationships. Is there anything that you do without having relationships with the state, with your communities? We need those relationships. We need to build on them. We need to move forward. There's $230 million out there that we've not gotten from the state for education. Why not? Because we don't have a relationship. We need to build that relationship. And I have spent 30 years of my life building those relationships and moving things forward in my community, on the county council, and I intend to do that as county executive. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vicki. And for that, I'd like to thank all the candidates this morning. Appreciate every one of your time. Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone, for attending. Drive safely, and now you may turn your phones back on.